Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're getting into something really powerful, the wealth of silence, choosing freedom over status. We're going to peel back the psychological deception of modern consumer culture and reveal the hidden traps of visible success. Let's just dive right in. So, picture this scene. A guy pulls up right next to you at a red light in a brand new, gleaming luxury SUV. He's got the designer watch, the expensive sunglasses, the perfect suit. He looks, frankly, unequivocally rich. Now, the light changes, he speeds off. But somewhere across town, a quiet guy driving a 10-year-old Toyota turns into his driveway after just a totally ordinary day. No flashy lifestyle, no luxury image, definitely no social media flexing. But here is the crazy cinematic twist. Statistically speaking, the guy in the Toyota is far more likely to be the actual millionaire. One of these guys is secretly drowning in a suffocating ocean of debt, and the other is quietly sitting on millions. This is literally the ultimate illusion of our modern economy. We just assume the luxury SUV equals wealth, totally blind to the invisible financial prisons people build just to maintain that exact appearance. There is a really brutal truth we need to confront here. Society taught us to recognize wealth by appearance, but real wealth was never designed to be seen. I mean, let that really sink in for a second. We've been completely conditioned to admire visible consumption. The oversized houses, the designer brands, these high-status lifestyles. But the folks obsessed with looking rich are usually sacrificing the exact thing that creates actual freedom, and that's ownership of their own future. Because real wealth isn't the loud roar of a new car engine. It's the invisible, patient, silent compounding of assets in the background. So why do we actually do this? Why do we fall for the illusion so easily? Well, it essentially comes down to one primal concept, and that's status signaling. We're tribal creatures, right? For thousands of years, having a higher social status literally increased your chances of survival. It meant safety. It meant influence, protection. And modern corporations understand this on a deep, deep level. They've essentially hijacked our primal survival instincts just to monetize our deepest insecurities. When we consume visibly, we're unconsciously seeking validation, social approval, and even emotional superiority. But this creates a really massive hidden trap. Why? Because the burning desire to appear wealthy almost always destroys our ability to actually become wealthy.
This tribal insecurity is exactly what builds the products we buy. Think about what a luxury car is actually marketing to you. Modern advertising, they're rarely selling you metal and glass. They are selling you an identity. It's pure emotional theater. When you sign the papers to finance that luxury vehicle, the marketing team has successfully convinced you that you're buying power, importance, intelligence, exclusivity, admiration. It's basically a public announcement screaming that you matter. But, you aren't actually buying those things. You're just renting a feeling. And the kicker is you're paying for that temporary feeling with hours, days, and years of your future labor.
And all of this creates what we call the consumption mirage. There's this huge, stark contrast. On the outside, you've got the oversized house, the luxury car, the constant lifestyle upgrades. It all looks so incredibly successful. But the internal reality? It's crushing property taxes, rapid depreciation, constant insurance stress. It's invisible chains and a massive emotional burden. The modern economy basically survives by convincing us that consumption equals success. But the reality is a fast-paced, high-anxiety treadmill. More money arrives and poof, it immediately vanishes into luxury upgrades and social competition. Basically, a lot of people are willingly sacrificing decades of their own freedom just to look successful for a little while. Which brings us to a really tragic contradiction: the underaccumulators of wealth. These are folks who earn remarkably large incomes, yet they build surprisingly little actual net worth. And why is that? Because every single time their income goes up, their lifestyle expands right along with it to swallow it whole. They optimize their entire lives for appearance instead of ownership. The real tragedy here is that the high-income earner, whose desperate need to look rich drives all their spending, actually ends up being the least financially free. They're trapped in this golden hamster wheel of their own making. I mean, sure, the wheel might have hand-stitched leather trim, but they're still just running in circles. The crucial point really just comes down to a choice in behavior: immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. Status culture heavily rewards immediate gratification. It demands performance right now. It insists that you show the whole world you're winning today. But ownership and freedom, those require delayed gratification. You have to be totally willing to look ordinary today so that you can be completely untouchable tomorrow. Letting consumer culture drain your wealth is essentially a choice for immediate validation. But prioritizing true independence, well, that's a choice for long-term power. Wealth grows in silence. That's a profound realization that just completely pivots our entire discussion.
Real millionaires understand a principle that emotionally immature consumers really struggle to accept. True wealth doesn't need to announce itself. It simply doesn't need strangers to validate its existence. Its confidence comes entirely from ownership, not from putting on a performance. And that brings us to the quiet power of the stealth wealth advantage. This is exactly how the true millionaire next door actually operates. They look normal, they drive practical, everyday cars, they actively avoid unnecessary signaling, and they just completely ignore passing trends. Instead, what they're doing is quietly accumulating assets and fiercely protecting their future freedom. It's this profound psychological ability to look at the world and say, you know what? I would way rather own my life than impress people. They prioritize their own autonomy over the desperate need for a stranger's admiration. Because here is the mathematics of wealth, but framed psychologically. Most people totally underestimate how small spending decisions destroy long-term wealth, mostly because they forget that wealth is exponential, not linear. It's a cascading loss of freedom. Think about it. Day one, you finance that luxury purchase. Year one, you've lost the investments that money could have funded. By year five, you've lost the compound growth. I mean, that $1,000 monthly payment could have grown to tens of thousands in the market by now. And by year 10, you have literally lost future freedom and optionality. A luxury car payment isn't just a payment. Every unnecessary status expense silently and exponentially steals future time from your life. We really have to draw an ultimate line in the sand right here because this distinction completely changes lives. There is a massive, massive difference between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich means you have a high income, but it's incredibly fragile. A person earning $500,000 a year but spending $490,000 is rich, sure, but they're literally one emergency away from ruin. Being wealthy, on the other hand, means time ownership. It means freedom of choice, reduced dependency, financial resilience, and most importantly, peace. Your wealth is not your income. Wealth is an untouchable reality. It is the absolute silence from financial panic, toxic jobs, and survival anxiety. But why do so many people never escape this trap to become truly wealthy? Well, it's all about the emotional triggers of spending. Consumer culture attacks our psychology nonstop. It's always whispering things like, you deserve this, or show off your success. And social media absolutely weaponizes this feeling of inadequacy. We're now comparing our completely mundane Tuesdays against the carefully manufactured highlight reels of everyone else's lives. And this constant comparison creates emotional spending rather than rational spending. Our purchases just become these emotional reactions to insecurity, envy, inadequacy, loneliness, and status anxiety. Modern advertising basically turns our self-worth into a tradable commodity. To actually break free from this, you have to make a profound internal shift. You have to stop asking the status-focused question, how wealthy can I appear? And you have to start asking the freedom-focused question, how free can I become? Literally, that one single psychological shift changes your behavior completely. One path prioritizes appearances, external validation, and temporary attention. But the other path prioritizes investing, cash flow, optionality, and permanent leverage. You're transitioning from seeking the applause of others to building just an unshakable foundation for yourself. And the ultimate reward for making that shift is the emotional silence of a paid-off life. Consumer culture rarely, if ever, talks about this deep, unspoken psychological calm. Just imagine it. No debt, no underlying financial panic, no desperate dependence on a toxic boss or a super fragile economy. No exhausting performative need to impress complete strangers. A paid-off life creates this beautiful emotional silence where you can actually hear yourself think. You can take risks, you can think long-term, and you can truly protect your peace. Which leads us to one of the most powerful realizations in this entire explainer. The less financially desperate you become, the less controllable you become. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. True luxury isn't a designer logo, it definitely isn't a fancy zip code, it's the sheer, unadulterated power of being entirely independent. When you literally don't owe anyone anything, you can completely reject manipulation. You can walk away from bad situations without a second thought, and you gain absolute sovereignty over your own time. So we're gonna end with this thought. The world taught you to recognize wealth by noise, but real wealth is quiet discipline, modesty, and ownership. The true purpose of money is not to impress other people, it is to buy back your life. So I want you to ask yourself this lingering question. Are you building a life to impress strangers, or are you actually buying back your freedom? Because the absolute greatest flex in a world addicted to appearances is complete, untouchable financial freedom. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Start building in silence.